Kum Lenin Ablat Gemara. We are on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, the Mishnah. So we're talking about if a person sends someone with an agent to get, do we have to entertain the possibility that the sender is no longer around by the time you administer the get? So generally we said no. Shema, we're not worried. Shema mes lechashin. Say that he already died, we are not worried. So the Mishnah continues along the same principle, even nothing to do with get. Hameniach peidos. If somebody sets aside fruits, lies mafrish aleim truma umasas. Or boys. In other words, he has two at home, which is tevel. He's not allowed to eat from it because he didn't yet separate it from meiser, and he has somewhere else in the house or in the barn trumas and meisers. And he says, you know what? The trumas and meiser sitting here in the barn. I'm going to use that to be the truma for all the fruits and vegetables and grains that I have inside my house. Lias mafresh alei ma'aser sheni, in order to, let's say, or moist, he has money sitting somewhere in the house, and he says, you know, that money sitting in that corner, I'm going to use that money to transfer the kedusha of the ma'aser sheni to that money. This mafresh alei ma'aser sheni. The din is mafresh alei. You can. The cheskes shehen kayamin. You can assume that they're still in existence, these fruits or vegetables, these grains that you put aside, they're still there, and you can go ahead and heartily eat what you now have made, no longer tevel. Now, even though we learned before, and we talked about many times, that when you do truma ma'aser, it has to be mukaf. Mukaf has to be close to it. Some say mahatera. How in the world can you go ahead and say that? And in fact, first the Mishnah says, and imavdu the galos, either get lost, you realize that they're no longer there. So how far back do you have to be chayshes? So one day in the Gemara, as the Gemara explains this Mishnah, your chayshes going back 24 hours. Anything that you did in the last 24 hours, you say the possibility of fruits were in existence, which means you have to give truma again. Mehasafik. But beyond 24 hours, to say it probably was there. It means it's not next to you at all. You don't see it. How can it be? How can you make sure truma ma'aser? Big machlek Traces learns talking about is Erev Shabbos. And Erev Shabbos, we allow you make special dispensation. You don't have to make him namukif. That's what we're talking about. Others say it's talking about b'di'evid, and you say, of course, not make him namukif. If he did it, it's effective, and that's what we're talking about here. That it's effective. Rashi doesn't make any explanations or any extenuating circumstances. Just so it is. Someone say it's talking about trumas ma'aser. Truma needs mukif from the Torah. Trumas ma'aser does not need mukif from the Torah. That's what we're talking about over here. Others say we're talking about the mai, which you bought from a honey, and you don't know if they're giving truma ma'aser, so therefore you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Anyway, got lost. We are worried that maybe that it was lost already a while. So all those tiblin that you did, you have to fix them up. But Rashi adds one little quirk over here, and then some course of being machlekes. Rashi says, and if you didn't eat it yet, go give truma again. Sounds like Rashi, but if you already ate, let's say you set aside tevel, you're going to eat this based on the fruits over there, you ate already, you don't have to give truma again. What's pshat in that? If we're worried that the truma wasn't there at the time, just because you ate it, why shouldn't you have your truma again? And also, alam mafrei. In fact, there's another Rashi they bring, another pshat where clearly says you have to do it again. So the Rashi here is not so clear. Okay, but if we only suspect them around.
You wouldn't go check till 24 hours after you didn't have anything.
It sounds like you didn't bother checking. You just happened to notice. So it depends. The question is, when did you notice? So Blazer says 24 hours. What exactly you mean by 24 hours will be in Machlekes and Gemara. Abiyuda says the most Mefarshim say that he was saying a new thing, even though it says Ayman, we have a rule when it says the name first and followed by the word Ayman, he's arguing on the previous Mishnah, but it seems like he's not arguing at all. He agrees that that everything we said before, we found like later on that it wasn't really truma, it was lost. You have to unravel the whole thing. However, Yehuda says, when it comes to wine, shloisha prakim, 3 seasons a year, boikin is a yain, you need to check the wine because to see if the wine turned vinegar. There's a good possibility it turned vinegar, and you cannot give truma for vinegar on wine because it's either 2 different species or because it's very poor quality. And we learned, it has to be from good to good. You can't take minara a lot tape. We did a machlekes for Rabbi and Rabbi. If you did, what happens? Is it a valid truma or not? But what are these 3 periods? Boikin is 3 times you are boiting the yain to see whether they turned off, they spoiled or not. The kidum from the easterly wind that comes around after Sukkot, and I was why. But I saw some other when you have the grapes are budding, beginning to bud, and so the leaves now start to fall down and allowing certain blossom little buds to begin to blossom. That's another period that we are worried that they're off. They became vinegar. And the last time was B'Shas Knisas Mayim B'Boisa. Boisa raised the next stage of grapes. It's not yet fully just starting to, more like just budding a bit larger than that. When the water enters these grapes, when other start getting some juice in there, you can squeeze. Some juice comes out. They're treated like the size of an Egyptian bean. So now they have a din of a grape, and when the water comes in. And that's called nichnes hamayim. The mayim is the juice that comes into the grape, and you can squeeze that little grape. Something fine will come out. That stage when you can pour, then it's hard like a rock, doesn't squeeze. Or literally, you take the grapes, you soak it in water, and then later this turns to vinegar. So taste that's an interesting discussion. When does yain nesa begin? Because the Gemara calls this mayim water that goes into the grapes. So it's not yain nesa. I mean, I did technically in the bice the little grapes and you squeeze out the juice. We will not treat it as wine. And the Rebbeinu Tam said you shouldn't be mekel, and he does treat this as wine. Okay, so the Gemara Chassidus already explains that on this mission and that everything that happens in the world comes the anniversary of that thing. It's not just an anniversary that people have a party here. All the Giluyim that happened the first time it was created comes down again, repeats itself. So these are seasons. These are times of the development of this particular object. So that's when the highest levels of Ruchnius is made on these things. So it has an effect on the Gashves. Gemara. My mace lays how many 24 hours? A mace says from the 24 hours when you check, you saw now that it's let's say sour by the wine, or in the case of the tua, it's gone. You go back 24 hours, and prior to that, we assume it was always there. Why? Because it has a chazaka that it was there. Now that you say that it's law, we say kan nimtza kan hoya. It happened now. Okay, we'll say now. We'll say 24 hours as a chumrah or as a penalty. Different ways of looking at it. Rabbi Lazar ben Atignas. I remember Rabbi Lazar ben Aviana. However, Rabbi Lazar Atignas. Rabbi Lazar ben Aviana. Meisla Eishla noch 24 hours after you put it. Let's say you put it on a week ago. So it's not pshat. According to the first day, you put it out a week ago, and then you discovered that they're gone. According to Rabbi Yechanan, you go back 24 hours. All those fruits that you have to get through them again. Or everything you set aside in the Torah, you have to do it again. And before that, it's all good. According to Rabbi Lazar ben Antignas, no. When you place it down at the beginning of the week, the first 24 hours, whatever you did is good. Everything beyond that, you have to redo. So now we learn the Mishnah, the word in the Mishnah does not seem to conform with Rabbi Lazar. It says in Mishnah, Im Avda, if you lost it, had a choishes me'esles, your choishes and me'esles. Bishleim l'mandama me'esle esh of dike shap is good. Other mandama me'esle esh of hanocha, if you want to say me'esle esh of hanocha, hi me'esle esh, ad me'esle esh of hanocha. If you're saying that's not 24 hours back, it's till the first 24 hours. That's what it says. You go back to the first 24 hours, that's the time that we rely that the fruits are still there, and beyond that, we have to assume there wasn't there. So it's not me'es leis, you should have said ad me'es leis. You go back until the first 24 hours. Hi, I'm ad me'es leis, boy, like kasha, you're right. The word in the Mishnah doesn't seem to conform. Omar Rabbi Lazar, there were two Rabbi Lazars. There's Rabbi Lazar ben Pados, he's an Amoda. There's Rabbi Lazar ben Shemor, and he is a Tana. So Omar Rabbi Lazar Amoda said, Chalukin Olav Chavelav al Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar in our Mishnah, who says that there are 3 periods in the year that we have to worry about the vinegar, he's arguing with his friends the Chacham. Now we learned. Because he says only 3 times a year that we are worried regarding wine. They say you're worried the whole year long. What's the story? And sorry. The Mishnah also says that fruits that you found, you only go back meis leis. Meis leis means 24 hours back or the first 24 hours. They say Every single item that you use this truma for to transform it from tevel to ordinary food has to be redone. You don't just go back to Mace Lace, you go back 24 hours. But the moment you put it down, why? Because these fruits have a chazaka. We focus on the fruits. You're focusing on the fruits you put aside, the good ones. I'm focusing on the true or the tevel. The fact is, this is tevel. The chazaka is that was never changed. You want to change it, but we have no evidence it was changed. Therefore, we're going to assume it's still tevel. The chazaka is that it's. So it depends what you're focusing on. The French are they say you focus on the tevel. It's not tevel. You want to transform it. We don't know if it did. If it didn't, therefore it remains tevel. Now we learn similar case. Mikveh a mikveh shenibdid. You actually measured it. V'nimtza chasa turned out to be that there wasn't 40 saw in the mikveh. In the mikveh you have tamid people going in. People have a chazaka that tamid. The mikveh had a chazaka that was torn. But the fact is, but now there's a reyes, and now you see that it's missing, and all the people went to the mikveh. What happens? And all these taras that you touch, what do we do? Benimtza chassid mikveh is missing. Cold tara shenasa al gab of any tara she made with the mikveh lebafreya. Ben b'shus hayachid, ben b'shus rabim, anakish hayachid. Arin mikirashus rabim. Normally we say of a tumish rabim, we say is Torah suffix tumah. Here we mean machmer. What's the difference? A normal suffix tumah is when that's we don't know. Did you touch the tummy? Did you touch the tummy? Well, it's a suffix if it ever became tummy. In shus rabim we don't learn from Satan, so we say it's Torah. In shus hayachid we learn from Satan, and we say that it's tummy. Over here, we're talking about something that was definitely tummy. The question is whether it became tired. So therefore, since we don't know for sure that it became tired, we're trying to change an established fact. You're trying to change that fact. You need some veracity. You some verity. You can't just assume that that's how it is because that's how it was. Pretty much, the Chalukin, of course, the Chacham are arguing with it. We look at the Mishnah here and Mikveh. You see close there, a day straight. We don't just say 24 hours back. We say everything from the moment that the last time you checked the Mikveh till now, everything is coming. So obviously they're arguing the Mishnah, and according to them now Mishnah, all the tfuah that you set aside, that you planned to say it's no longer tevel, you have to redo it. No, mountain. I would have thought Maila Mafreya Meisleis. I would have thought Mafreya doesn't spell out Mafreya. Maybe going 24 hours like I Mishnah. No, here is very different. Why could have a cheskas tummy? A person's definitely tummy. And therefore, we focus on the cheskas tummy, the fact that we don't know for sure mikvah's cars. You have to redo the whole thing. Yeah. Says the Gemara. The Rishonim work on it, trying to understand the distinction between the case of the mikveh and the case of the fruits. But then we learn we learned that the 3 times in the 3 occasions you got to be careful of the wine. And Peter said, 3 seasons, the 3 seasons that you sell the tfuah, the grains. Number 1 is before you start planting. Season number 2, b'shas while you're planting, and Tesa has a hard time understanding the difference between lifnei hazera and shas zera exactly at the same time. So he says shas zera means towards the end of the planting. The praise Pesach, and we're talking about 2 weeks before Pesach. 2 weeks before Pesach. These are the 3 seasons when we say that that's when you sell the tfuah. That's the best time to sell tfuah. We'll soon see what's the difference. Why do you tell me that? 3 seasons, you sell the wine. Praise of Pesach, that's when there's large demand. Praise of Pesach, 2 weeks for Pesach, for the Arba cases. Praise of Tzedis, for Shavuos, for Brengens. Praise of Chag, for Sukkot, for the Simchas Torah and the works. The shemen, when it comes to oil, oil is good from Shavuos and onwards. My hilchos, what do you tell me when they sell? Amaro is a Ravitela Papa. They should be for partners. Only for partners. So Rashi has an interesting idea that generally partners, when we sell price between the 2 of us, we work out a principle that we don't just work out every price together, but work out the principle rule how we work out prices. And one partner is the accountant, so this partner can go ahead and calculate the prices based on what they agreed on. So in these 3 seasons, the partner does not have to consult with his partner whether to sell or not, because these are the high season for selling. And even if it turned out to be later, says Rashi, that the week later the price went up, the tiny kind of tiniest them. So the Bes Yosef and Shulchan wants to learn from this Rashi that if one partner sells, not during 3 times, and turned out to be that the week later the prices went soaring up, he can be held personally liable because he didn't consult and wasn't these 3 seasons. Others say it doesn't mean he can be personally liable. It means he can have tarumas, he can have kindness on him. Yeah, rightfully so. Should have consulted. We should have thought about it. So that's how Rashi learns. Tracy learns an interesting thing. It's talking about I want to dissolve the partnership. We just became partners, and I said, okay, let's dissolve the partnership. You can't just say let's dissolve the partnership unless at a time when until after you take advantage of this good season, and then you can go ahead and dissolve the partnership. Otherwise, you cannot dissolve the partnership. Yeah. In other words, the one partner can say, I still want to be partners. I want to have the use of your money so we can make a lot of money this next, these are all the winter sales around. I want to make a lot of money. After winter sales, you want to get out, you can get out. We have a constant babasa. If you give me good or you're good, either you buy me out or I buy you out. No, you schlep. Taking about further, what happens the rest of the year? The rest of the year, every single day you're allowed to sell. Hard to understand exactly what that means because every single day, the rest of the year, you're allowed to sell. So then what are these seasons? And what it means is the second season, third season. The first season never ended. So it seems to be maybe that this is all talking about old crop. So the old crop, once we've allowed you to start selling it, then you can continue selling that old crop. But when the new crop comes in, you start the rules again. You can't sell them until the next season comes along. And that's what it means there. Anyway, the pasuk says, the sun was shining by David should organize the easterly wind that was very quiet. My not quiet wind. Quiet means that actually it was like a harsh wind that it causes that was very, very windy, and it causes the waves, big waves, like ridges in the ground in the sea. The Gemara. So the word charish doesn't mean quite like I just told you. Charish means ga'aket, plowed. You like plowed the water. I don't understand. Read the pasuk, the context. Hainu see if Yenu is complaining about the heat. You're telling me the complaint should be about the wind, and the Yenu is complaining about the heat. The sun was bearing down on Yenu's head. By his olive and fainted. So what's charish is? When the easterly wind blows, it has the most influential of all the winds, and it calms all the winds down. All the other winds calm down; they don't go fiercely like the usual. Because when says, is that what it says in the pasuk? And the southerly wind, when the southerly wind stops. It sounds like the southerly wind is the one that has the effect. You know when your clothes are warm. That when the southerly wind calms down. When does the southerly wind calm down? When the easterly wind, the wind has an influence over it. When the east, the wind blows, all the winds calm down. All the winds calm down. The world gets a lot warmer. And so on. So the easterly wind is the most influential. Ruach Kodim Azak Kola Laila we have by the Yamsuf. That's how it is. So you want to tell the story. I'm going to say it again, but Abu Hunu Rav Chizda, I told you the last time I was watching this, and I looked up in places of Fosh Talmud. Nobody says it. So the truth is, I don't remember where I heard it. Abu Hunu Rav Chizda. Maybe I didn't hear it. Abu Hunu Rav Chizda. Habi Yosri, they were going, the Chalif, they were sitting, for Ozil, Geneva Alayu. Geneva passed them by. Remember Geneva, we had that log, that Marukva wanted to give him over to the government that they should destroy him. He was a big Talmud Chacham, but he used to harass Marukva for whatever reason. More than say what he harassed him for. And the whole sugya is about when he puts a pasuk in writing, do you have to etch it out in the parchment or not? So this Geneva was walking down the street. I mean, what a name. But this Geneva was walking down the street. One of them said to the other one, should we stand up? This man is a great Talmud Chacham. He's a big machlekes. In other words, you're having an argument. A Talmud Chacham, B'machlekes, what overrides what? Do we say the fact that he's B'machlekes and he splits the divides community, we don't stand up for him? Or do we say the fact that Talmud Chacham Torah covers over everything and we should still stand up for him? That's the Machlekes. In the meantime, Asi came, Ela Gemai to them, and Amalahu doesn't say whether they stood up or not. Amalahu, B'mayasik, what are you discussing? Amalei Beruch, discussing the winds. He said to them, this is what Rav Chana, the son of Rav, said to them, we have winds coming from 4 different directions every single day. The northerly wind, it blows all of them. The northerly wind blows all of them. Not so, ain't no olam is kind, the will cannot exist. I feel a shoachim for one moment. The ruach dreim is kashim. So the easterly wind is very warm. The northerly wind tempers all the winds. The easterly wind is very warm, but the southern wind is ferocious. Source of hurricanes and everything else. And so it's kosher mikul, harder than anything else. The Ilmole ben Nes, it wouldn't have been for this malach called ben Nes. Ma'amida stands there, and Machrefes is called and kul ben will destroy the entire world before it. Shenema, it says in Pasuk. It says in Pasuk. Do you understand the lip of Nates, of this malakol Nates, Yufresh Kanafa of the Taman spreads out its wings, the Taman towards the east. In other words, it's the easterly wind that he brings out that calms down the ferocity of the southerly wind. So the easterly wind played a major role as well. Now, all of the Mepharshim have a problem. How can two Amoraim lie? They weren't talking about Ruchas, they were talking about Geneva and whether they should stand up for Geneva or not, because he's a Baal Machlekes. Some of Ruchas, he lied, and they lied to him, and he misunderstood, and he got carried away.
So they were talking about something before he came. They spoke about him when they noticed him.
So the Chamshin, once they hold tight to Ruchas, means about these ferocious winds and calm winds. You're a ferocious person versus anyway. So there's a shot. I heard it from my father. He should have a full shleim. In Pirkei Avos, it says, "Kol mi sheruach ha'adam noichem menu, ruach hakadosh baruch hu noichem menu." If the ruach of people like this person, the ruach of Hashem likes him. Kol mi she'ein ruach hakadosh baruch hu noichem menu. So according to Pirkei Avos, it's all about people. Other people like you, Hashem likes you. Other people don't like you, Hashem doesn't like you. In the Yishalmi's version is Kol mi sheruach hamakam noichem menu. It starts out with Eivish. In other words, the Machlekes is what's more important, to be frum to Hashem or to be frum to Benad Mechaveri. What's more important? So it's actually a Machlekes, and everyone talks about it. Machlekes Pirkei Avos and the Yishalmi. So this is exactly what their argument was. If it's more important than the Torah, and even though this person is Baal Machlekes, you got to stand up for him. But if it's more important to be a mensch with other people, then you don't stand up for him, even though he has studied. So they were arguing about the Ruchas and Pirkei Avos. And saying which ruach is more important, ruach hamakam or ruach adam. He totally misunderstood what they said. He thought he was talking about the wind, so he said it was. So they didn't like him at all. Talking about it further, Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Havayasser was sitting, Havaychol was Rav Nachman Yaakov came by another person called Rav Nachman Yaakov. You have two Rav Nachmans. Rav Nachman Yitzchak, which you find very often in the Gemara, and Rav Nachman Yaakov, which seldom is found in the Gemara. And the reason is because according to Taisus, Rav Nachman Yaakov is the illustrious Rav Nachman that we always find about, who married the Reish Gulus's daughter. He's the one that we learned that the mother Yaltas put on his head holy yarmulke so he should behave. So Stam Rav Nachman, according to Taisus, Rav Nachman Yaakov. And it's nice from this story right here. Anyway, but Rashi learns different. Rashi learns Kol HaTorah, Kol Shas. Whenever it says Rav Nachman, that is Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Big argument who Rav Nachman is. According to Taisus, Rav Nachman by Yaakov, because Rashi on Yitzchak. So let's see what happened here. Rav Nachman by Yaakov, the Yassi said, "Go hurk the dove, and the golden chariot, the potish, so as how the kazi was covered with a shmata, purple shmata, and it looked like he was one of the members of the household of the government." Rav went to him, and Rav Nachman did not go to him. Maybe he's one of the members of the Reish Gulusah, so Rav went to him. Maybe I have to curry his favor. Rav needs their help. I don't need their help. Why don't I need their help? So Rashi says because Rav Nachman was the son-in-law of the chief of the exilarch, and therefore he didn't have to go. No, Rashi clearly learns Rav Nachman by Yitzchak is the famous Rav Nachman that we always talk about. When you saw it was Rav Nachman by Yaakov, Also, the Gabi went to him. He went to him, and Nachman Yaakov, it was so hot, unrolled his sleeves and revealed his Direya. Direya is the arm. The wind, the box I'm in has been making some kind of blowing a little bit of wind. Otherwise, it's dead still out here, and the heat is painful. Isha Mapelas by the easterly wind. Now we're talking about the easterly wind, how hot it is. Don't mean for the northerly wind to calm it down, how hot it is. That even women can miscarry just from that heat. And Shmuel Mafil Magolosh Biyamaka, but even a brilliant, a precious pearl will melt. Inside the womb of a woman, the shipazet lasts for 3 days, but not with this heat. Nachman said, the old Dash on the same person, not arguing. It says in the pasuk, "Who bein achim," this between brothers, Yafri will make them multiply, will have kids. Yahweh Kodim Ruach Hashem in Midbar comes along the easterly wind from the Midbar. Oil go up. The Yahweh will dry Mekoida, the very source of life. The Yechra Mayone will dry up. It will dry up. What do you call it? The source. Yavish Mekoida is the source of the women, which means she'll be mapped from miscarry. But Yechmayone is the May in the spring. That's Shivazera. Shemeisha, what's inside the woman's womb. All of that will melt. All that will melt. And this long case here proves that actually Nachman Yaakov is the one who is the son-in-law, and Nachman by Yitzchak. And Nachman Yitzchak said, I don't need the government, not because he's a son of the government like Ashkelon, but because he's a very wealthy man. So he didn't need to curry the favor of the government. Saying when I was finished Pedic, Amarava says, Aegis who he said these witnesses from Surah, the Daikrai, they were very pedantic with the Psukim. Mikey, who bein Achim Yafi amongst the brothers, he will multiply. Amarava says, even things that behave like brothers. I feel a shufsa bekupina demara, the handle that goes into the bottom of the lapata, that goes in the bottom of the shovel, and there's a hole over there, like a cavity, and you put the stick, the arm right into that, and they're pretty tight. But in the heat, it'll melt. We saw with our own eyes, you had this massive wheel right here in the middle of Melbourne, and if you remember, they put it in, it cost a fortune, and 40 days later, the sun melted it down, totally melts down. It cost them $70 million just to repair it before they finally declared themselves bankrupt 2 years later.
But it's still sitting there for another 20 years.
Yeah, nobody wants it. So this handle and thing, it's like achim, they're together, but the heat melts it. Now, basically, another example. He says that even the peg in the wall, so it's very, very tight, it's very hot, it melts. Again, the idea of achim to melt. Even one of you weave into a basket, so they're all woven together, very, very close. Nevertheless, it's very, very hot. It dries up and it can fall right out. Hadna Allah kol haget. Now we go to Shaleach.